What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and today I am here to preview KSW 74, which has the heavyweight title on the line as Philip de Vries from the UK takes on Brazilian Ricardo Prasel in the main event. It's a very, very good card though, from bottom to the top. If you're not familiar with KSW, there's actually a lot of names here that people will probably know. So it's a good card. If you, as I said, if you've never seen KSW before, it's a good card to tune in for and to tune into and to watch. And before I get into maybe the breakdown of the card, first thing I need to do here is I need to shout out my guy Sean Denny. He is KSW expert. Anytime I'm looking at a KSW card or anything like that, I always give him the shout, and he is an absolute fountain of knowledge. Over in our sister site Severe MMA over in Ireland, he'll have his preview up next week, so make sure to check that out. A lot of what I say in here is coming directly from him, with me watching a few fights to go with it as well, but he's an absolute expert. So I shout out to my guy Sean at Dinny Rants over on Twitter. And do you know what? You need someone like that to actually, I think, go through KSW and to know about a lot of those great KSW fights and fighters as well, because it's a somewhat insular promotion in terms of it doesn't need the world to be successful, and I don't mean insular as an insult in any way. I mean as a compliment more than anything else. Honestly, it is a promotion that has been able to be successful, basically kind of sticking to its own country and having the support of its own country people, with its own country fighters fighting it, each other and the best that the world, or some of the best that the world has to offer as well. And it's been great. Like, I've been a big KSW fan for ages. I think my appreciation for KSW went up 100-fold when they came to Ireland here, and I went to one of their cards, and it was smashing. It was brilliant. I heard, Dave Meltzer talking about it before, and he said it's like an old school pride card or a dream card or something like that. And that's what I would describe it as well. I was obviously, a little bit young to be watching all of those, maybe the back end of some of those big cards, but having gone back and watched them all, and as I'm sure a lot of people have, I'm sure a lot of obviously we're here in Sherdog, so a lot of people were probably watching them in, 1992 or well, maybe a little bit later than that. But it was like going back in time to one of these massive cards and being part of it. I was even watching one championship the other day, where they brought all the fighters out in front of the arena to kind of show them off before the fight started. And KSW do that as well, or did that at the time. In the card I was, they had they were in like a massive, like there was 3 up the top, 3 in the middle, 3 in the bottom, like 50 feet in the air, and it was just something different. You have, after being to UFC cards, Bellator cards, Cage Warriors cards and others, it was just a little bit different, and the level of production, and we always talk about it being prize fighting and it being entertainment as well as mixed martial arts. KSW absolutely bring that, so it's fantastic. And I've been saying this for a long time, because I obviously cover a lot of PFL, a lot of Bellator, and I think what those guys need to do is stand out, and be different, not be like the UFC. And I think both of the two promotions I named there have done a good job in some ways of standing out. PFL have a lot of little gimmicks, which I actually appreciate, a lot of them. Bellator, like I say, when they went to Hawaii, they made it different. In Ireland, it feels different as well. It feels special and it's great, whereas all the UFC cards can feel very samey. KSW, by its nature, almost is different, and they go to all different cities as well, all over Poland. This city they're going to is I don't want to mess this up now. I'm probably gonna mess this up. It's the Arena Ostrow. I will leave it at that. You can tell me, any Polish listeners, or you can tell me where the Arena Ostrow is. But I thought to just say that before I got into the card. And another thing I want to say as well is that this is a massive time for MMA in Europe. I know KSW feels, it's obviously in Europe and in mainland Europe as well, but it feels a little bit kind of apart from the UK and Ireland scene. You can even throw maybe in the Paris card, obviously that's coming up at the weekend as well. And, you know, maybe, you know, if there's Dutch, I know Bellator had one in Holland, haven't they, and Italy and things like that. It feels like, you know, the KSW stuff is more with like the other Eastern European mixed martial arts, when it probably shouldn't be in terms of the quality and in terms of what they're doing. Now, not to say that other Eastern European mixed martial arts associations having good quality, and they absolutely have, but KSW to me is up there as one of the top, you know, we know who's number one, but if you're looking at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, KSW is in that conversation to be any one of those spots, I would think, and they absolutely should be. And if you don't put them in that conversation, you're probably making a bit of a mistake. And the point here is that we are in a war right now for Europe. We're absolutely in a war for Europe in the world of mixed martial arts. Because if you look at the UFC, right, they have really let Europe go. If you think about it, this scene, KSW are dominating this scene. So much so that a lot of fighters, look at Roberto Stosic, he's gone to one championship now, but he stayed in KSW for a long time. Gamrot now, who's in the UFC, stayed in KSW for a long time because he's getting paid a lot of money. There's guys in KSW that will never go to the UFC because they're getting a lot of money and they're getting as much fame and attention as people in the UFC are getting, but just in their own home country. And you know what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. If that's where you plan to be for the rest of your life, or plan to be, and you're happy there and all, absolutely no problem with it. So KSW are massive there. But the point here is, and I'll go back to the European point as well, the UFC let that down, but they also let like the UK and Irish side down. You see a lot of the Irish fighters, especially, you know, the up-and-comers coming after Conor McGregor, which there have been a lot of, almost all of them have not signed for the UFC, obviously Ian Gary being the exception, you know? The likes of James Gallagher, even, you know, guys who are more maybe setting their careers in terms of having 15-20 fights like a Peter Queally and others, went to Bellator. You're seeing guys now like Will Fleury, who was probably the next guy. He's gone over to PFL, and, you know, Nathan Kelly on his way up gone to PFL, and others as well. And I think if you look at that, and you say there's a lot of English guys as well. Look at, say, like Fabian Edwards. Leon a few years ago had signed from, obviously he's doing really well now, the champion. His brother, who a lot of people think could be even better than Leon, he's that good, is gone to Bellator. Another good fighter as well. Look at Phil DeFries, I know he was in the UFC, but he's in KSW as well. It feels like some of the top talent in Europe, and most of it, I think, in the last few years, has not been signed to the UFC. Now, we've had, obviously, the guys who have gone through the Cage Warriors route have gone that way, and, you know, the best guys, obviously, you know, that have gone that way, not necessarily the best guys, but the best guys that have gone through the Cage Warriors route have been signed and gone to the UFC. But I think there's actually more guys at the moment, so probably more of a percentage of guys not going the Cage Warriors route at the moment, because there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of money to be made outside of the Cage Warriors route. Therefore, they're not going to the UFC. And it's leaving the door open for PFL to offer money, for Bellator to offer money. Now, one championship, I think we're talking about coming over to this side of the world, and obviously KSW and others as well. It's a massive time for MMA in Europe, and I just wonder as I get into, I promise I'll get into the preview now of this card in a second, but I just wonder if KSW will take like another chance of trying to go to the UK, of trying to go maybe to Ireland. I'd be very, very interested to see. I'd be very interested to see how they go and how they can keep their place in mixed martial arts. And, you know, it's definitely a thing to keep watching, and definitely a thing to keep an eye on over the next few years. Like, the war for the UK and Ireland and Europe is absolutely on. You know, when Bellator went to Paris early so the UFC couldn't, that was a big step. They go, you know, went to Italy early to be the first ones there. These are big steps, you know, to keep coming back to Ireland, to really secure Ireland, keep coming back to the UK all the time. When the UFC, you know, they go to London because they have, you know, the few UK fighters for one card, and that's all great and all. But Bellator seemed to have, over the last few years, really made waves there. Now, Bellator kind of cutting back their cards. I don't know how much that's going to continue, you know, with the zone deal falling down and stuff as well. It'll be very interesting to see if they can keep going with that. But however, I think to get this conversation started, to keep an eye on it, is something we should be doing over the next while. So with that, let's get into the card and talk about it. And this is a really, really good card from top to bottom with a lot of names that people know. I'm going to start at the main event, touch on 2 or 3 more of the fights as well, and kind of bring you through the card as well here. So in the main event, as I said, the heavyweight title is on the line. Philip de Vries against Ricardo Prasel even. Prasel is an ex-Chelsea goalkeeper from like 12 or 13 years ago. A big guy, 6'7", 2-0 in KSW. At the moment, he lost to Keita, who we see in the card before, or he was losing to him before coming back. I watched that fight the other day, and it's a very telling fight, I suppose, that one, if you're to look at it from Prasel's point of view and look at his record of 13-3 with 9 submissions. The Keita fight, it didn't end in a submission, it ended in a TKO KO, but he was kind of looking for him, and he's the sort of guy, you watch him and you think, oh God, I don't know, does he have the requisite skill set to compete at the level of heavyweight mixed martial arts that we see, in Eastern Europe a lot with, I'll get to Philip de Vries in a second, but then you see, he comes from behind, he's a few ankle lock wins. He beat Daniel Milanchuk with that ankle lock in his last fight. He's fought against Dantele Mays as well. He was in the Dana White Contender Series, ended up losing that. He went to decision with Ante Deja, who, for my money, is one of the best heavyweights in the world, doing really good things over in PFL at the moment. And that was back in 2018. So he's been fighting for a good while. He'd one fight in 2012, didn't fight for 3 years, and came back. And has been fighting pretty regularly since, I suppose, with 16 fights now as well. And one thing I would say, 6'7", big and athletic, and he's only 32 as well, which, for a guy who went through one sport and then came over to another sport, it's something maybe you don't see as much. He takes a lot of damage in these fights. Obviously very good submission, stuff like that. I don't think his stand-up is amazing, but he's almost like, Drederick Tatum and Homer Simpson sometimes, and now that's very demeaning, but I don't mean it that way, but he could take a lot, tires lads out, and then kind of wins. And I think his athletic base really does that for him. Now that's going to be tough against Phil de Vries. 7-0 in KSW, longest reigning champion since April in 2018. 6 title defenses, 5 finishes in title fights as well. And he's a really good all-around fighter, dominant wrestler, very good submissions. He's been training with a lot of good guys as well. Mick Parkin was on Dana White Contender Series recently. He trained a bit with Paul Craig and Tom Aspinall as well. And if you watch Phil de Vries, look, he's one of these guys, you look at him and you might think, God, this guy isn't spectacular. He's not, built like Francis Ngannou or whoever it might be. He's not this big muscle bound heavyweight. Even like Prasel, when you look at him, you see this big strong guy. Phil de Vries isn't that really. And you look at his movements, and it's like maybe he's not the fastest in the world or not the sexiest in terms of the way he moves and the shots he throws. But you watch a little bit closer and you think, no one's really out cardioing him. No one's really out athleting him. No one is really beating him technically, which I think is the most important thing. Now, in the other ways, maybe a little bit at times when you come up against the top of the top. But I think I look at Phil de Vries and I see, like, this is a guy who's just a very good pro. An honest pro, they call him in soccer. A good, honest pro who you have to be very good to beat. You have to be very, very good to beat again a guy like Phil de Vries. He's beat Darko Stosic, Tomasz Narkun, Keita, who we mentioned earlier on, Karl Bedorf. A lot of very, very good guys. He's had his run as well in the UFC back in the day. It was funny, he fought Todd Duffy. Todd Duffy was the guy I was thinking of as well, for the big muscle bound guy. He certainly is not Todd Duffy. He lost to Todd Duffy back in the day, but that was back in 2012. He fought Stipe Miocic all the way back in 2012 as well. He's been around for a long, long time. And I think he learned a lot by fighting those sort of guys. And, if you look at his career now, 27 fights, he's 17 wins inside the distance out of his 21 wins. And you maybe wouldn't think that looking at a guy like Phil de Vries, but I think a lot of them probably come late. Let's have a look through his record again. His fifth round win in his last fight, second round win, 2 decision wins, a second round win as well. So it's not all, first round wins or anything like that. Now he has a good bit of them if you go back through his record, but he is a guy that I think can stay in there. out cardio guys and out beat guys. And now Prasel is a bit like that as well, but maybe more in terms of the amount of damage he takes than the cardio. And I'd be very interested to see what way Prasel actually fights this fight. I think if it stays on the feet, I think Phil de Vries will beat him. I just think that he's too better technically than Prasel. I haven't been really that impressed with Prasel. He's some good high kicks and good front kicks right down through the middle and things as well. I think he can be effective in certain ways, but I think when you come up against a guy like Phil de Vries who has met lads like you or lads better than you, I think it's going to be very, very tough to compete in a fight like that, if you get me, just on experience level alone. If Prasel can get the fight to the ground, if he can get on top especially, it could be a bad time. He has some nice ground and pound. I saw one fight where he was landing kind of hammer fists from the ground and pound. They're very, very good. And as you know, as I said earlier on as well, a lot of submissions good from his back, throws up arm bars and stuff like that as well, with the big, 6'7" frame. It's always useful to have that with you. So, and a very interesting fight. If I have to give my prediction, I'm going to go for Phil de Vries to win that one. Probably, I would say in the maybe third round knockout or something. That's very specific. That's a very specific one. But I was talking to Sean about it as well, and he was kind of saying that he thinks Phil might take him down and dominate him from on top and maybe get a submission. And, he might be right. He knows a lot more than me, so maybe take his, his call on it more than mine. But I feel like he's just going to beat him on the feet. I feel Phil is going to win this fight on the feet. So let's see how that goes. A very, very good one there. Anyway, the next fight to me is the best fight on the card. It's Damian Janikowski against Tom Breese. Janikowski, if you don't know him, he is a bronze medalist in the 2012 London Olympics in Greco-Roman wrestling, and you'd know that a little bit by the way he fights. There's a lot of guys here close enough to the city that's in, so he's kind of a hometown guy. Throws a lot of suplexes and stuff like that, but I was talking to Sean about that as well. Now, I do believe his coach has banned him from going for suplexes because it takes away his cardio. He's training in a new gym now as well, WCA, split into two, and he's with some of the same coaches but in a different place. He is a guy that does get drawn into fights as well, though, sometimes, and likes to throw down, likes to throw bombs. Watching a couple of his fights, preparing for this, as I said, you'd know he was a wrestler in some parts of the fight, and in other parts of the fight you think this guy is just like a maniac who goes for it. He's a big right hand. He throws it a lot, and I think he backs that wrestling as well. Obviously very, very strong wrestling. But it's Greco. I was talking to Pat Downey about this when I interviewed him a while back, and he was kind of saying about the different styles of wrestling that are successful in MMA, and I don't necessarily think in modern MMA, now back in the day with Randy Couture and others, Greco was very successful, but I think modern MMA, Greco mightn't be as successful as it once was. So he may be able to suplex lads around, and he may be able to get some body locks and stuff, but if you know that's coming, maybe it's easier to get the kind of all fours, get back up, or from a suplex it's easier to transition when you know they have to move from the kind of hip control up. You can get your hips out then when they have to give that up and get back up, push that head down or something and get out. So it's interesting to see, and especially against a guy like Tom Breese, that's going to be difficult. Breese, if you don't know him, you should know him. I'd say at this stage, obviously he's been in the UFC for a good while now, fighting out of Team Renegade. And he's one of the, I believe he's one of the head coaches even at Team Renegade, a place which, I interviewed Joy Herbert a few weeks ago, who obviously fights out of there as well, and I was kind of asking him about it, and I think it's one of those gyms where all the lads kind of just coach each other, and they all come in, and now they have more coaches than I think they had before. But he's a guy who kind of brought a lot of that together, and that gym has gone from strength to strength. Obviously, Leon Edwards just won the UFC welterweight title, and how that's the strongest any gym can get. He fought in Levels Fights League before that. He became their middleweight champion. Now he's coming into KSW. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Unbelievable Jiu-Jitsu. I remember talking to someone from the UK scene about Tom Breese before, and they were saying this guy's Jiu-Jitsu is just on another level, and he's a good striker as well. Very, very good all around. The one problem with Tom Breese, obviously, you know, the mental side of it has been a big issue for Breese over the years. You know, he got choked, a triangle choke by Omari Akhmadov, who's, you know, gone on and been a very good fighter since that last year. You know, Tom Breese probably doesn't get arm triangle choked in training every day, probably, or in, you know, BJJ competition or anything like that. He's a better fighter than that, you know, and I think the mental side of it probably let him down there. And, you know, he's gone to a few fights and he's not been able, and it's a struggle. And I just wonder, would the few wins that he's had now on levels, the opportunity he has now in KSW, kind of away from the glare of the UFC, away from the spotlight, I wonder, will that happen? And I wonder as well, will the Leon Edwards win give him maybe that opportunity to say, I can do this? Our gym now is settled that if I do it or I don't do it, it doesn't matter, but let's go out and just fucking do it, you know? And that's very easy for me to say sitting here, and I have great respect for Tom Breese and what he has gone through, and I'd love to speak to him about it even at some time or get him on for an interview. I think he's a fascinating guy and a really, really good fighter. And I just hope, you know, he's still young. He's only 30 years of age. You know, for a guy fighting middleweight, that's not old by any means. And I would love if he becomes one of these guys that has a career turnaround and goes from strength to strength, and, you know, maybe becomes a KSW champion, or goes, you know, maybe to the UFC or Bellator and becomes a champion there as well, or he just stays in KSW and has a great career there. Maybe KSW would be the perfect place for him. You know, I have a massive respect and a very, very, you know, I've watched Tom Breese for a long time, and he's one of these guys you see, like, earlier in his career. You know, I saw him obviously fighting in Cage Warriors and Bama and other places back in the day, and like, you think to yourself, like, this guy is going to be a UFC champion, and it feels like it just hasn't gone right for him, you know, in so many different ways, and it could turn. Like, I remember being at the fight where he fought Cathal Pendred, who obviously, you know, an Irishman in Ireland, and he just destroyed him, you know. And Cathal, and, you know, people make laugh and joke about Cathal sometimes because he maybe got a good decision or something once. Cathal was a good fighter and a tough guy, a really tough guy. And Tom, you know, I'm sure Cathal would say Tom Breese just decimated him. He destroyed him. Like, and that was a very, very good win, a better win than anyone probably would say, you know. And he has some very good wins, and it shows his ability. And you know, going in there against Damian Janikowski, that's another guy he's no easy guy to beat either, you know, and he's very good wrestling as well. And if he gets on his back, everything could come back, all the bad things again. So this is a massive fight for both guys, I think, and it's the straight matchup. Forget about all of that. The straight matchup, I think, is a very good matchup as well, and I'm really looking forward to this. You know, Breeze, I think if he used his size, he's a bit taller, you know, maybe a bit quicker in terms of, like, Janikowski is maybe thicker and smaller. I think maybe if he can use that height, I think he'll win the fight. So it should be a very, very good one there. Then in the heavyweight division, Darko Stosic takes on Michal Kita, whose names I probably destroyed there. No, I think I did okay. No, it's Michal Kita. So Stosic was in the UFC before. He's that guy who got the 3 nut shots. Remember that? He's 3-1 in KSW, 3-1 in KSW. Only lost to Philip de Vries for the belt. He's all about big shots, slams, big punches, big ground and pound, massive power. Whereas Kita is a guy, you know, who's been around for a long time, 36 fights, 42 years of age. You know, an old school wrestle boxer, I would say. He's another guy who throws a lot of heavy ground and pound when it can get there. And, you know, a lot of his fights finished by TKO because of that. He also lost the title fight to Philip de Vries as well, so two guys maybe looking to get their way back there again. So a very interesting fight there. Stosic will be the favourite. I think I'll go for Stosic to win this one as well. Didn't get my pick for the last one. I'm going to go for Tom Breese. I'll go for Tom Breese to win by submission in that one as well. So after that, then we have a middleweight fight between let's get this pronunciation right now. Cezary Kesik from Poland against Tomasz Ranakowski, who I like his style. I'm a big fan of Ranakowski, or Romanowski even. He, you know, he's been around KSW for a while now. He won their version of Tough a while back, and that makes him an absolutely massive fan favourite. 4-1 in KSW. Missed weight a couple of times, but if he can kind of get back at it here, it'll be a big one for him. Started out, a lot of BJJ, but he strikes very, very well now. Big power as well. His only loss in KSW is to the Octagon champion Patrick Kinsel. Two great wins in a row now as well, so it'll be a big one here for him. Kesik is I was talking to Sean about this one. He told me he's a soldier by his day job, so it's tough for him to get as many fights. He's only had 5 fights in KSW. He's lost 2 of his last 3. So this is a big fight for him here as well. Very good finisher, very well rounded, very good cardio, knockout power as well. Probably stand up war this one. Someone getting knocked out. I'm going to go for Romanowski to win this one as well. So next fight up on the card then is an Irish Pole in the bantamweight division. Pawel Politylo, he's taken on Werlleson Martins even is 0-1 in KSW. Lost a title shot against Sebastian Pishevesh, whose name I pronounced absolutely beautifully there. Almost finished him in that fight, but he went on to lose that. Good striking, good grappling, very, very tough. Politylo trains out of SPG, under the tutelage of John Kavanagh, and Dave Roach is usually with him in the corner, as he is with a lot of guys who travel to Europe. He's originally from around where this fight is on too. He's a tough, hard-nosed fighter, I would say he is. Very good against the cage, throws some shots from in there as well. A guy who's improving, every time I see him, I think he gets a little bit better. So this could be a very, very interesting fight. I'm gonna go for the Irish guy here. I'm gonna go for Politylo to win the decision here. Then we have Emil Meek is on this card as well, and actually I'll talk about him last here in a second. There is a women's strawweight fight on here as well. I know they're trying to push this division. I believe they were in for Shauna Bannon as well to try to get her into this division. So they've had a good few people who we've known over the years, Ariana Lipski being probably the biggest one, and this is another opportunity to see the women go at it here. Anita Bekus is taking on Sofiia Bagishvili. Bekus is probably one, the top ranked woman in KSW now, 2-0 in the promotion. Very strong. She is a former fitness competitor who took medals in different things. Her game is all about strength, good striking as well. She's only lost to a couple of past and future UFC fighters. Bagishvili is all about submissions, arm bars, triangles, and all of that. Probably expect Bekus to win this. Probably harder to take down, harder to submit. So there you go on that one. Emil Meek fight to finish it off here. He's fighting Kacper Koziorzebski from Poland. My pronunciation's just fantastic. I'll be honest. Sean wrote all these out for me with how did I say it? Like it's Kozeeorbens. Brilliant. So absolutely fantastic. But Meek, he's a guy I've always liked. Honestly, I like his style. Everyone knows that, his most famous win from back in the day against Husimar Palhares, and that great Rebecca Hitman video that he put out after it as well. Absolutely fantastic. But, he beat Jordan Mean then in the UFC and went on a 4-fight losing streak, last of which came in Aries after he got cut from the UFC. So this is a massive fight for him, really. It's an absolutely massive fight in his KSW, debut and in his MMA journey altogether, I would say. A very good fighter in his prime. But is he still a very good fighter? Who knows? These lads are supposed to fight back in July, but Meek got injured, I believe. Kacper is an all-round fighter, better on the feet, good knockout power. He's got submitted a couple of times, I believe. So Meek will have to take this chance. Meek will absolutely have to take this chance, and he'll have to go in there, and he'll have to finish him. He'll have to submit him, or he'll have to knock him out. I think all 4 of Kasper's losses have come inside the distance, being finished, knocked out 3 times, and submitted once. So big opportunity for Emil Meek to get his career, I suppose, back on track. So, yeah, as I said, all in all, a very, very interesting card, a very interesting time for mixed martial arts in Europe. It's always interesting time for mixed martial arts in Poland. They do fantastic stuff over there, and I suppose I'm lucky I'm in Ireland as well, where we have maybe not as inside a scene as that. Ours is more like in Bellator and in other places, more spread out. But we have a very good, strong scene here as well, and like they do in Poland. And it's there's a lot of Poles here in Ireland as well, and a lot of great people. And when that KSW card was on in Dublin, they were all out at it, and the support is absolutely phenomenal, and it's great to see KSW coming back here with an absolute banger of a card. So if you've a few minutes to watch them this weekend, I probably do. I think it'll probably be pretty good. So I will leave it at that, everyone. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.